There's no other way to describe the end of the season for Texas A&M than disappointing.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. On the show today, we're talking a little bit kind of where do you go here? Where do you go from here, now that you got early signing day coming up, you got the portal coming up. There's a lot of ways to kind of build for next year coming up in the next week, few weeks to month. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk a little bit about kind of what went wrong against Texas, but we're going to start the show talking about just how disappointing the end to the 2024 season has been thus far. And, it's incredibly frustrating that you finish the season 1-3, finish the last 4 games of the season 1-3, with that win coming against New Mexico State. You had so many opportunities to win 9 football games. Because, if you guys were heading into that South Carolina game, you basically had 9 wins in the bag if you were able to go 1-2 against South Carolina, Auburn, and Texas, knowing you had New Mexico State. So you basically had, 8 wins already. You needed one of those to get you to 9. And obviously 9 for most of these games was never the goal. The goal at this point was 10. Hey, if we can just take care of business against South Carolina and against Auburn, and then you can win 10 games regardless of what happens against Texas. And obviously that wasn't the case and wasn't what happened. But just looking at this, I'm completely fine with his coaching staff. This is not a we're in trouble, where do you go from here kind of conversation to me. It's not that. Going 8-4 with a chance to go 9-4 with a bowl win is in year one is always impressive. I'm happy with the coaching staff. Genuinely, I really am. Some obviously that loss was painful. The end of the season was pretty rough, but I'm happy with this coaching staff and what they've done to this point. I believe in the future. I just think there's some things you have to clean up in some different position rooms. I'm completely fine with coaching staff top to bottom. I don't have any complaints about coaching staff. If you do, leave those in the YouTube comments. I'd be really curious to hear y'all's thoughts on that. Now looking at the end of the season, once again, knowing that you had so many opportunities to do something special this season, finishing the year on that, 0-3 in SEC games, 1-3 if you count, your final 4 games, is painful. Knowing, hey, you just came off a huge win against LSU, then you lose South Carolina, which South Carolina has proven to be a darn good football team. So you can't take anything away from that team. It's a really impressive. It's been impressive the way they've kind of played down the tail end of this season, with a big win over Clemson in their rivalry game. Then that loss to Auburn, and then they kind of go and get a little bit drilled by, I don't know about drill. Let's say it was a little tighter than that, but lose handily to Alabama. And then you play your arch rival in front of one of the best environments I've ever seen in my entire life with a ton of hype, and you can't find a way to get the win. So I'm disappointed in the way the season ended. I'm also disappointed in the fact that in the, in those environments, and we're talking about, we'll add the LSU game. There's no question that the 2 most hyped games of the season were Texas and Notre Dame. Obviously, the crowd, the atmosphere was great for LSU, and you won that game. So we'll say you were 1-2 in these great environment games. But it's frustrating when you have that environment and lose. Texas was the better football team. That night, Texas is the better football team, in my opinion. But still, right now, and obviously the goal is to close that gap. I think there's a gap. I don't think it's the widest gap ever, but there's a gap, and you got to find a way to close it. And I think that the early signing day in the portal gives you an opportunity to do that. Knowing you got to go there and play next year, it's not going to be any kind of easy game. So that is definitely a big part of this. But that does frustrate me that you lost those two, the Notre Dame and the Texas game, knowing that your fans showed up. And I mean, once again, these players, they play hard. I'm not saying it was an effort thing. It just, you lost. But I mean, if the atmosphere is like that, it should be hard to lose a football game. I don't care who you're playing. I don't care if you're playing the 96 Bulls. It should be hard to lose in an environment like that. That's just the reality. So I was definitely frustrated by that. It's funny. I predicted in our crossover show, I predicted Texas to win this game. I thought Texas was a better football team, but I think my heart was telling me A&M's going to find a way to win this game with this environment, and they didn't. I mean, they really didn't. Aside from that pick six, I mean, they literally couldn't do anything. So I think the way the season is ended was disappointing. Now, I'll tell you this. I think we learned against Texas that losing Le'Veon Moss was genuinely massive. So, you get Reuben Owens back in this game, but kind of like what we predicted throughout the week, he only plays or gets 3 carries. So it's good to have him back. Hopefully we'll have him for a bowl game, kind of have him a get right game before next season. But I mean, Amari Daniels, my goodness, 13 carries for 21 yards, a long carry of 5 yards. I get it. I know that Texas has an elite defense in general. Against the rush, they're elite. But still, my goodness, the fact that you are only averaging 1.6 yards per carry, that is a mega losing recipe. And, that was one of the things that I talked about on the show last week. If you want to win this game, you've got to have your yards per carry be close to a 5. And it was nowhere close. Your team yards per carry was a 3. That's not going to get the job done ever. I mean, that's just not. 3 yards per carry on 34 carries will not get the job done. So, got to be better. Got to be better on the ground. And I think losing Le'Veon Moss was massive. I think it was massive. Obviously, you lost him in the beginning, and I'm not saying that was the difference in the game, but I mean, you score that touchdown late in the fourth quarter. Does Moss make a difference there? Like, I'm not trying to be an excuses guy because, no, Texas won that game. They were the better football team. They are the better football team. But I think having Le'Veon Moss makes a difference in that game, makes a difference against Auburn. I think the end of the season could have been very different. And once again, I mean, he only played, like one couple carries, couple plays in that game before getting hurt. So even the South Carolina game, I mean, losing a guy like that matters. I think he was one of the best running backs in the SEC, and I know Texas lost a lot of backs and all that. So I'm not trying to make a full-on excuse. I'm just saying I think the play of the running back room after Moss went down just decreased so much. And knowing how much Texas A&M wants to run the football and was running the football, that killed you a little bit. So that was frustrating. I mean, and it hurts knowing, hey, you lost 2 running backs, and I mean, knowing that the same thing happened to Texas, like, that's impressive with their depth. I mean, TU has a couple guys that can flat out play after losing a couple running backs. So, and I mean, I think Amari Daniels, Texas has a great defense. Okay. They have a great defense. They really do. I'm not going to sit here and act like they don't, because they do. So, I mean, it wasn't easy. It wasn't, easy yards for Amari Daniels to go get, but he just did not play well down the stretch of the season when his team needed them with Le'Veon Moss out for the year. So that was a little frustrating. Another thing I've got here is, hey, your schedule is going to get a lot tougher next season. I mean, you look at this schedule and it's tougher. I mean, it's literally just the flip. It's just the polar opposite of this game. I mean, you got to go play at Notre Dame. You got to play at Arkansas, at LSU. And that's what you got to remember too, is you're playing at Arkansas. This is no longer in Jerry World. You're going to Arkansas. So you got to go to Missouri, to Texas, to LSU. So yeah, at Texas, at Missouri, at LSU, at Arkansas, and at Notre Dame. So you've got 5, challenging road games. Texas is going to be a top 10 team. LSU is going to be a top 15 team. Arkansas, they'll be okay. And going to play there won't be fun. Missouri, they're going to be pretty good, I think, again next year. I think they're going to recruit. They're going to find themselves a quarterback, with losing it. I believe Cook's gone, but you get the point. And then, yeah, you get Mississippi State at home. Should win that one. South Carolina with Sellers, sky's the limit for them moving forward. Mississippi State, you should win that one. And then kind of looking, sitting here and looking at the other games, I mean, it's just not. You got to play Auburn, who I think I think they've learned their lesson. They're going to buy the $1 million quarterback. Point of all this is the schedule is going to be a lot tougher next year. You have got to find a way to get more, to get better in lots of different areas, because it's not going to be an easy season next year. This year, your schedule is easy. Next year, it will not be. And we're going to talk more about that, about maybe what was this team. And I want to tell you why I think that this team maybe wasn't quite what we thought it was. And I'll tell you what that means coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I got to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. A lot of fun stuff to bet on right now. NFL action's hot and heavy. You got a lot going on. NBA's heating up. There's a ton of great things to go over and bet on FanDuel. And you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NFL, and, of course, the Locked On Podcast Network. A question I have now for this season, and this could be the reality, and it was something we talked about a lot in the offseason, but, I mean, Texas A&M is a good football team. I believe that. They're a good football team. I think for a while, a lot of people thought they were a great football team. And kind of looking at this now, it seems to me, I think the schedule was a little bit it was so manageable, once again, manageable, that I think people thought this Texas A&M team is better than they were. And I think that led, and we all partook in this, myself, I think every Texas A&M fan, because you kind of buy into it, and it's hard when you're winning games. But I think that we thought the team was a little bit better than they were. And now, I believe in the future. I believe in who Marcel Reed is in the future. I believe in a lot of these different aspects of this team. But, this year, I think Texas A&M was a solid, middle-of-the-road SEC team. A solid, 20 to 25 ranked teams where they should have been. And, kind of looking at this for the future, Texas A&M is going to need to find a way to win, the big game. Like what I just got done griping about. I mean, once again, reiterating the schedule that you're going to see next year. You're going to be playing all of those tough games. I mean, what you consider a tough road, a big game next year, I think that without any question, Notre Dame's going to be a big game. LSU, Missouri, Texas, South Carolina, potentially Auburn. I mean, there's going to be a lot of big games on your schedule. Can you win these games? Problem is, this year, a lot of those big games were at home. Next year, a lot of those big games are on the road. And that is definitely, a little bit concerning. I mean, having to play on the road, it's always tougher. It's always tougher. Having to go play in Baton Rouge, having to go play in Austin, having to go play in South Bend. Is that where Notre Dame is? South Bend, right? None of this is easy. Like, those are tough games. And knowing that, I mean, it's kind of South Bend. I was right. I had to double check myself. Knowing that, you've got to find a way to win some big games next year. So, I mean, I'm disappointed right now in this team. I mean, not in this, just in the way the season ended. And I'll be honest with you, maybe that's just who this team is, and I think that's what we learned. Like I believe whatever bowl you put them in, they can go and they have a shot to win it, and you can finish this year on a high note and kind of be looking forward to next year. You've got your quarterback, you've got a lot of pieces placed, but I mean, just knowing that you had a chance to squeak out another win or two here and do something special this year does hurt a little bit, kind of looking at the way this season ended up. Now, against Texas, the defense stood up. I mean, the defense was good, 17 points from Texas. Your offense just couldn't help you out because you scored 7 points the whole game. And who'd that come from? Your defense. So your defense did everything in its power to win this football game. Really proud of that group after what the display against Auburn, where you go, man, the offense was great. What the heck happened, defense, right? I think that happens. And then you kind of go, oh, man, we're in trouble. But then when it matters the most against Texas, against your rival, the defense shows up. And that was great to see. Really wish the offense could have given you a little bit more than they did in this game. I mean, it was like, 250 total yards of offense, 100 rushing yards, like 150 passing right around there. It just wasn't enough. Not saying it should have been easy against this elite Texas defense, but in big moments, big-time players have to show up in a big way. And this offense just didn't show up. Your running game wasn't great. Marcel Reed turned the ball over. He had some good throws. He had some bad throws. Receivers didn't help you out a ton. The running game was atrocious. The offensive line didn't have a great showing. I mean, it's just the offense did not show up when it matters the most. And that is a problem. That is a genuine problem. I mean, you need players that when the lights are the brightest, they show up and they play massive, massive games. And you just didn't see your guys do that in this game. So, that's definitely something that I am going to pay attention to over the offseason is you've got to have some players that in these games can show up and have a big time moment. Reminds me of what Marcel Reed did against LSU. He gets called upon, goes in and wins you a football game. You need performances like that. You need some help from receivers, your running backs. You just didn't get it in this game. So I hate this for the defense, knowing how well this defense played. I really hate this for the defense. I'm frustrated by the way that this kind of all went down because the defense is no question, without a shadow of doubt, solid. And this offense just didn't pick them up in this game, and I hate that for them. The last thing I have here kind of to sum up this season / this game, and then we'll get into kind of portal, early signing day, what has to happen type of stuff, is I do believe Marcel Reed is your quarterback of the future. I do fully believe that. But I think he's got a lot to work on and clean up this offseason, as he should. I mean, he's a young guy. You got to remember this. He's a young quarterback. He's only been, once again, this is what, his like fifth, sixth, seventh game, something like that. I mean, he's not played a ton of football. So this was kind of the trial run. And I think we learned that he's really, really good and that he's got a bright future and that his legs are insane and they can be used in multiple different ways. But once again, I think you're going to still have to find a way to help him continue to develop as a passer, help him continue to develop in a few different ways. So I'm really kind of anxious to see how that all works out. But Marcel Reed, I believe in him. I believe in the future he has. I believe that he is a really solid future. He's just got to dial a few things in, which is what you would expect from any young player. That's just the reality. He's going to continue to get better and better and better and better. And as he continues to get better and better and better and better, he's going to continue to just if he can dial in that arm, this Texas A&M football team can be special next season, especially if you do make the right moves in the portal. So Marcel Reed's development is going to be a big offseason conversation for this Texas A&M football program. We're going to talk a little bit about where do you go from here. We got early signing day coming up this week. You got the transfer portal coming up this week. There is a lot of stuff going on. Where do we go from here? How do you continue to improve this program? We'll talk about that coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. First, I'll tell you about our friends over at Game Time. Game Time is the best and the only place to buy tickets. I love the Game Time app. Like I talked about, my mom and I are going to a concert next Monday in Nashville at the Grand Ole Opry, which I'm really looking forward to, and I've never been there before. And where do we get our tickets to said event? We got them on Game Time, the only place anyone should ever buy tickets. The best prices. I love how you can kind of see your seat in the venue. You can see where you're sitting. And then from that, you can decide where you want to buy tickets. I love that feature. This is an all-around great, incredible app that I will use to buy tickets for the rest of my life. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So you've got a big 2 months here. Obviously, it's early signing day coming up this week. You have got to hold on to your class. You got to do that. Texas A&M landed a quarterback, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow. We're going to lead the show off with that. I obviously have to talk about the game today. So we'll talk about that in the future. But you did go get your quarterback. Right now, I think that the key needs to be hold on to some of these key players on your roster. And we'll kind of diagnose who those players are throughout the week. That's kind of what this show is going to be for the next month. Obviously, we'll talk a little bit about the bowl game when we know who you play. But it's going to be the setting up the future for next season. And to me, setting up the future for next season is going to be filled with a lot of making sure that you have that you fix some positions, receiver, offensive line. There's a lot you need to improve on in those two rooms in the offseason. Obviously, there's some players that you'd like to have stick around, but at the end of the day, I think there's a lot that Texas A&M needs to improve on in the wide receiver room. So, and the offensive line room. And I think that has to be done through the portal. Maybe some of these young guys, freshmen this year, you've got some talent there, but you got to see it continue to develop. So the portal, I think those are the positions you've got to hammer. You've got to hammer those positions. I mean, there's a lot of positions you're fine. You don't have to go get the $1 million quarterback, which is very exciting. A lot of teams are going to have to do that. But you do need to go get a couple $100,000 receivers and a couple $100,000 linemen and I'd go get a tight end. I mean, there's a lot of positions that you still need to figure out. And that's what this is going to be. I think Coach Elko, I'd say I'd give him an 8 out of 10 for how he did in the portal for this season. He had some hits. He had some misses. And that's what it's going to be. But you'd rather hit more than you miss, obviously. I think that he is going to continue to get better and better and better, developing talent, better and better, finding talent in the portal. So this offseason is huge. You got to fully knock this out of the ballpark. Obviously, early signing day is key, but in our game nowadays, in college football, the transfer portal, to me, obviously building your base through high school recruiting is important, but when you just need few little details to finish up a roster, I think that the transfer portal can do that. So Coach Elko, this staff need to continue to get better and better and better at dialing that in, which I believe they can do. And I'll kind of be excited to see what happens there. But the transfer portal is everything. You have got to hit the transfer portal out of the ballpark. You're going to start to see players leave. You're going to start to see players that Texas A&M might want to go leave their school. You're going to see Texas A&M players leave the portal. You've got to do a good job holding on to the players that you want to hold on to. You got to get rid of some players that aren't going to bring much value to your program anymore. You got to do that. But you also got to hold on to the players you want to hold on to, and you got to go get some elite talent in the portal as well. So this next week for signing day and month or two for transfer portal is going to be incredibly important for this football program, for this coaching staff. They have got to knock this out of the ballpark. And if they do, knowing the base you have on this roster, you have your quarterback, you have a lot going on there, this can be really, really special moving forward. we'll kind of talk about that throughout the week more, throughout the month more. There'll be a lot to go on. So that'll be part of the fun of the off season. So hope everyone is looking forward to more of those conversations. Hate the way this season ended, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go win a bowl game. Let's get this program moving in the right direction, and let's be better next season. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you all so much for being here this season, every day so far. I really, really appreciate y'all. Hope everyone has a great rest of their day today, and we will see y'all tomorrow right here on Locked On Aggies.